Hey everyone, this is George Coase. Welcome back to another episode of the Innovator's Mindset podcast. I was watching something today on Instagram and it talked about speaking and it shared all these tips. And I thought, I have some good tips that maybe will be helpful to someone out there. And this isn't just connected to if you're speaking, but it's really about education, leadership, how we really bring new ideas to the table. And it's about building rapport. When I'm asked to speak, often people will say, hey, can you go for 30 minutes, 45 minutes? And my sweet spot is kind of an hour. And I know that might seem long, but there is a method to this idea because you have to decide if in a short amount of time, hey, do I want to build rapport with people? Do I want to build that connection with people? Not only that they understand me, but more importantly, they know that I see them. That is really important. The next thing is I want to make sure people feel affirmed, that they're appreciated for where they are today, but also that they're challenged. And I want to share some good ideas and thinking, I don't want people to walk out of there just thinking I'm perfect the way that I am. And as much as I appreciate the journey that people are on, if you walk into a room and everyone is the same as when you started, then there's really no use to actually have it. Now, I shouldn't say that there's no use, obviously, but it's that idea of really connecting with people and building rapport so you can challenge them so they actually grow because of your work. And then you want to have that call to action. And so why I say there's a sweet spot to this is you have to sometimes decide, okay, if I only have this amount of time, what do I want to get rid of? If you challenge people but don't build a rapport, it's really hard to have that connection. If you have rapport but don't give them any great ideas or challenge their thinking, then they might like you, but then it's not really beneficial to them. So you have to kind of find those spaces. One of the things that I learned during the Zoom era, during COVID, was when I first started speaking, you're limited in an hour, and it was daunting. It was something very new to everybody. And the hour felt so rushed in what I was sharing, and it was really hard to connect with people. So what I really learned, I think this is important, I would spend the first 15 minutes of my talk basically connecting with people, getting to see them. We would do, I know this sounds ridiculous, we would do Name That Tune, and I would get them to actually write their answer in the chat because I wanted people to chat, and it was a great way, and you can see how educators are really competitive. And it was just kind of a fun thing to do. It wasn't like an icebreaker. It was just an easy way to connect and learn about them, joke around. And then I'd spend 45 minutes speaking. The really interesting thing about that process that I think really, really matters, we don't pay enough attention to, is I would rather spend 15 minutes building rapport and then you're very invested in the 45 minutes that I do share ideas, rather than spend an hour sharing as many ideas as possible, but you're not invested in them because you don't really see me as a human being. So that rapport that we build, whether it's in speaking and leadership, whatever, it really, really matters. I was thinking about a story connected to this, and it was early on in my career as an administrator. I remember being an AP. There was a gentleman who, really brilliant, to be honest with you, was very brilliant, but he also was very condescending. It was very hard to talk to him. And there's so much that I agree with this person on today that when he told me, he was very visionary. He's very, his ideas are really ahead of their time. But it was really hard to listen to him, and it was really hard to take him seriously because it was always like he was talking down to me and thought less of me and kind of came off rude, that you just kind of discounted what he had said. And I think that is a really important aspect to understand, is people do not buy your ideas unless they buy you as an individual, buy you as a person. And that is something I really think about all the time. And so when I talk about this rapport, one of the things that people really need to understand is, yes, people need to kind of know you, see who you are as a human being, as a person, not just see you as the professional. It's one of the reasons when I'm asked, what would you like an introduction when you're speaking? I'm like, make fun of me. I really don't care. Like, I actually don't want the introduction that says he wrote this book, he does this, does that, because you're basically putting me on a pedestal. And I know I feel uncomfortable when you hear that. It's like, oh, listen to this person. And I don't think it really does anything, but the introduction can really, benefit when you joke around and it's like, hey, like I actually, as much as I think I have some great ideas, I also don't take myself too seriously. And I think that's something that I want appreciated. So yeah, people should know you, but one of the best things I don't think enough people do is really acknowledge the room. One of the things that I see all the time in people speaking and they talk about this is it's like, start with a story. And they share this and they share the story. And it's like, where is this coming from? There's no connection there. And it's funny because you used to always joke about musicians going, "What's up, Cleveland?" And then everybody cheering because, unless you're in Chicago, then might be a little upset if they say, "What's up, Cleveland?" Which probably has happened, to be honest with you. Because people feel seen right away. And I think the best way to start a conversation, whether it's speaking, whether it's you're doing professional development, whether it's just you're starting a day, is really kind of acknowledging the people that you connect with. As a classroom teacher, I would always start off like, hey, tell me about your weekend. Does anyone want to share something that they did with their weekend or something? And it's really kind of like, hey, let's connect. Let's hear about you. Let's hear about you and find those connections. And one of my favorite speakers of all time, if not my favorite speaker, is Jim Valvano. And if you look this up on YouTube, it's called Cutting Down the Nets. His talk is incredible. And if you don't know who Jimmy V was, he passed away. He died of cancer. He gave one of the best speeches ever. And I actually met his daughter, which was so humbling because he is like my icon for speaking. And he did a thing called Cutting Down the Nets. And one of the things I really loved about it is he just won a national championship. He's probably one of the most famous people in the United States at the time. And everyone is there to see him. They want to see him so bad. So they give him a beautiful introduction. He walks on stage. The first things he does is he acknowledges the room and he talks about the speakers before him. And it shows that he really cares about the room that he is in. Now, if you watch that video, and I've watched that video, some of the stuff feels like inside jokes because it's only things that people would actually understand that were in the room. And immediately you feel connected to the person. There's a power to this. But we have this notion of doing the TED Talk and we're limited to the 18 minutes where we tell that story, whatever. And it might look great on a camera, but it's not necessarily great in a room. So when you're challenging ideas, when you're wanting to push people to grow, because that should be the goal. Of course, we want people to feel affirmed. We want them to feel appreciated, but we also want them to feel challenged, but also know that we believe they have the ability to really grow, to actually develop themselves. You have to build rapport because when you challenge people, and I say this all the time, they have to know you got their back. If you push people too far and they don't think you have their back, it's never going to help you. So it's just something I was thinking about. I know this is a really short podcast. It's summer. I wanted to just share a quick idea with you. It was just had me thinking about something. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for all you do. Take care.